Happy Christmas, everybody. From me to you. Hope you all have a lovely holiday and enjoy time with whoever you can. How's everyone doing? Your boy here, Apollo from Down, Down, Up, Up. Only 2 reviews left, and this is one I've really been looking forward to, considering I missed it last year. Oh, easily my favorite Muppet movie of all time, and debatably my favorite telling of the Christmas Carol of all time. Of course, me being a bit biased, this was the first not only Muppet movie I saw in full, but the first telling of A Christmas Carol. Now, you all know my history with A Christmas Carol. I've watched at least 5 versions of it, counting this one. We've gone through them all on the channel. The Muppets, on the other hand, are a bit different with me. I was never into the TV show when I was a kid, but I was into some of the movies, mainly this one. This one, the original Muppet movie, The Great Muppet Caper. I liked Muppet Treasure Island, Muppets from Space. Maybe I am missing 1 or 2 other noteworthy ones. In my opinion, though, this is the last of the classic Muppets. This was, after all, dedicated to the passing of Jim Henson, and I believe another member of the Muppet family, I think Richard Hunt, debatably, was... I think so, but mainly Jim Henson. Now, this is going to be a bit of a long review, I'm thinking, because this is one I really want to run down and go through bit by bit. I love this movie, and I love watching it Christmas Eve now. But, of course, this review is going to be coming out on Christmas Day, most likely. So, let's see how we can do. We start off in a beautiful set. I'll give this movie credit. I love the set they were working with. You just come on down with the opening credits into the town with a little tune. It looks lovely. And then we don't exactly start with Bob Cratchit or Scrooge. No, we start with Gonzo and Rizzo, with Gonzo being our little storyteller, taking on the role of Charles Dickens himself. It's something interesting this movie has. It has a consistent storyteller throughout the whole movie, because Gonzo and Rizzo are basically with us from beginning to end, explaining what needs to be explained for first-time viewers of the Christmas Carol story. So they explain their roles, and then we cut to Scrooge walking in, and then, all right, let's talk about Scrooge. He is played by Michael Caine in this movie. And when I look back, what an interesting choice that must have been at the time. But what a payoff for me. He is the first Scrooge I ever got to know as a kid. And his character is quite diverse in this. I can't really still pinpoint him to a specific Scrooge, unlike the 1951 and 1938 telling of A Christmas Carol, where I have a specific term of descriptions for those Scrooges. I can't nail down Michael Caine. One moment, he is the most badass Scrooge you will ever see walking, and then he's the most emotional to the most pissed off. He definitely has a hard time keeping his emotions on track, but I like that in Scrooge for this movie. Now we're going to take a break from his character more specifically, but after a little jingle coming through the town and getting to his office, who's Bob Cratchit? It's Kermit the Frog, and that was just the perfect choice for the movie. Another nice little touch, he has other bookkeepers working for him, played by a bunch of other Muppet rats. Some comedy relief here and then whenever they try to ask Scrooge for something, get flat out rejected or yelled at, running away in fear, or rejecting what even Kermit, aka Bob Cratchit, is saying. I like that. That was a nice touch to the movie. And then what do we get? We get Scrooge's nephew popping in. And you could call it a miss. I'm trying not to be biased on my own judgment here. The more I watch this, the more there's just a little bit of me that wouldn't mind punching the nephew right in the face. I don't know. It is something a bit over positive for me, so to speak. He really isn't that different from the other nephews that Scrooge has had in other movies, but there's just something about him, and we'll get to him a bit later, that also just runs it off for me. And another spoiler, There is no mention of Scrooge's sister in this movie. Was that a miss? Not really, because this is mainly for kids, but has lasted much longer, in my opinion, down the run for people growing up with the movie like me, for example. Um, but we get him coming in, obviously spreading the cheer as only he can. And then we get the two gentlemen looking for donations, in this case, played by Bunsen and Beaker. That was a bit of a nice touch, kind of like that. Again, get rejected per the usual. But as they're leaving, and I can't stress this enough, it's something I keep noticing every time now and getting a little bit surprised about. If you've seen this movie, you might not have seen it the first time. Watch the scene where Beaker is leaving Scrooge's office. It looks like he's just straight flipping him the bird. I'm not kidding. Watch the scene and tell me what you think. It looks like he's flipping Scrooge off, and it's very funny, accidental or not. And then for even more comedy relief, there's a little boy, a rabbit Muppet, singing outside of Scrooge's office, asking for a penny. Scrooge slams the door on him, but his nephew Fred just happened to leave a wreath, and Scrooge is ripping that up, decides to open the door. The little boy thinks he's going to get a penny, instead he gets a wreath thrown at him. And again, it's just the cells that these Muppets have in these movies. It just makes me laugh hysterically. So again, the little touches, I appreciate the little touches, and over the years, they still do it for me. And then, of course, we get to closing time. Bob summons the courage to ask for the full day off. Originally, he was just going to get half an hour in the morning off. Oh, that's low. But gets the full day off, obviously. Another nice little tune, a jingle, and it's a Muppet movie. You know there's going to be singing. A little jingle when him and the bookkeepers are closing up for Christmas. I really like that song. Then they make it to the outside. There's little penguin Christmas parties going on, a little ice skating party. Very random. But again, it's more just for some physical comedy. The penguins skating out of control, some yells, bumping into Kermit, all that good nonsense. Gonzo and Rizzo were in the office earlier, still telling the story. In this case, they jump into a little skating action themselves for a few laughs. Cute stuff. And then Kermit says his goodbyes, finishes his jingle, walks home. A bit of a sad shot, though, to the little bunny who's just wrapped up in... It just looks like some plastic and newspaper on the outside trying to sleep. That does hurt low even after all these times. You got to think about who's alone on Christmas and who doesn't even have a home to stay in. Sharing is caring. I can't stress that enough, and the movie does have a little bit of that message in there for that scene. Then we get back to Scrooge. He's ready to go inside his house, bundle up for the night. Gonzo and Rizzo continue to tell the story from their perspective. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. Now we're getting into the ghosts, more specifically Marley, or the Marleys. That's right. This was interesting to me, but a good choice. We have two Marleys that Scrooge worked with. Jacob Marley, of course, stays, but we have a Robert Marley. Now, I'm not the biggest Muppet fans, and you'll tell right here. The Marley brothers, in this case, are played by the two older Muppets who usually just criticize everything for a couple of minutes in each movie. I don't even know their names by heart. Is that insulting? It kind of is. You'd think I would know that by now, but I don't. We have Jacob turning into the door handle. Not so much a spirit figure on the door handle. No, the door handle turns into the Muppet's head. That was cool. Like that. Scrooge is stirred, goes upstairs. He even mistakes his own dressing gown for an intruder and beats the crap out of it with I think it was a poker, a fireplace poker. That was an effective scene. They do a good job in this movie when it comes to little creeps and spooks, including when the brothers are about to appear in full ghost form. We got a little bit of a spooky fog machine going by the staircase. Michael Caine is really selling it. Like, he's a bit scared right now. I see it. After the bell rang and the fire went out and now we got some smoke, but then you got to remember, it's a Muppet Christmas movie. It's for kids. We get to the comedic effect. The Marleys themselves heckle Scrooge. They have their own little sing-along, and then they vanish. Cute little scene. Did the job for me. Then, of course, we get to the main bread and butter. Time for the ghost of Christmas. Past, present, and future. The past, in this case, I feel like was nailed on about right. It was a little girl stereotyped by, I still would like to say Mr. Magoo's Christmas. Even though that's up for debate if it was a little girl or boy. I'm still not really sure of that, to be honest. But we then jump to the past. In this case, sort of a cool showing because we need to get Gonzo and Rizzo there to keep telling the story. As Scrooge flies out the window with the ghost, Gonzo throws this sort of I'm trying to think of it now. I'm blanking. This rope attached to some kind of metal object. Um, and he basically just rides with Scrooge into the past with Rizzo. Hilarious at the time, again, for the physical comedy, and Rizzo freaking out. We get there, and of course, when Scrooge is a little boy, he mentions seeing his friends walk by, but only two. We don't get into any too descriptive names from other Scrooge movies, like Dick Wilkins, for example. No mention of any childhood serious friends that you'd recognize from the other movies. And again, we get to the school. Scrooge is a little boy. He's growing up in time. And at the same time, though, Rizzo and Gonzo are still doing their nonsense. They're hiding up on a shelf with other statues. And as they're mentioning time going by and the school decaying, and you got to remember, Scrooge does stay there because we don't have a sister relationship to take him out. The statues are falling on Gonzo and Rizzo as the shelf is breaking. Again, I have to mention this physical comedy because this is what it does for me in this movie. It really holds up and gets that cheap pop that I'm looking for every single time. And then we have the headmaster of the school, played by Sam the Eagle. Cute little shout out when he's explaining Scrooge about how he's about to be apprenticed. And he goes on about it as the American way, but Gonzo corrects him, it's the British way. That was a nice little touch, nice little side detail. Then we get to Fozzie in this case, Fozzie and Moms. Fozzie is played by Fozzie Bear. Of course, there's no way you could not take advantage of the namesake for this movie. But the only disappointing thing for me, I wanted to see Fozzie longer in this movie. I feel a little bit of that every time I watch this. I'm going to say whatever comes to mind here, and I'm hoping I'm being the most honest with myself. Gonzo and Rizzo have some more fun when Gonzo's about to light one of the lamps and instead lights Rizzo's tail, has to push him in a frozen bucket. Hilarious. We get to the Christmas party. We have the band, the traditional Muppet band, and Animal getting everyone quiet for the singing and dancing and all that. And then Scrooge meeting Belle. We do have his love interest in this movie, same namesake as Magoo's Christmas, and I'm not sure what came out first, to be honest. I would think Magoo's is first. I think this was 92, 91, 92, I want to say. Or maybe 93. It was early 90s this one. I'm not sure about Magoo's, though, to be honest. And then we do get, of course, to the breakup, and I'll say one thing. I found the acting still to be very awkward between young Scrooge and Belle, and I didn't need that much singing. I'll be honest, I'm used to singing in Muppets movies. The singing with Belle was a bit too much. What makes up for it, though, is how touching Michael Caine Scrooge gets to sing with her for just a little bit and then starts crying behind her as she walks away. That was touching. Also, how we use the song she's singing about love is gone towards the end of the movie, rendering the words, I believe, the love we found. That was a nice touch. I give credit on that. It worked in that long run. Did I need young Scrooge and Belle talking as much as they did, even so brief? I didn't. I'll be honest, I didn't. I didn't need that. But for the sake of the newcomers, I guess I kind of understand it, but it goes back to my thinking, the acting is just awkward between them. I don't really know what it is, but it doesn't work. I think it's because I've seen so much better emotion in other Scrooge movies, I do relate them more to this scene. And altogether, maybe for a Muppet Christmas, I'm fine without having the sister attachment and the love interest attachment. I think it would have been okay to skip both of them somehow and get away with it just fine. Anyway, that's it for the past, though. The present, on the other hand, they got a better nail when it comes to look. No disrespect to the little girl floating around, but here we've got an actual giant Muppet being the ghost of Christmas present. And by this time, you could you could say that Scrooge has turned face 100%. I don't have a problem with that in this movie. Muppet Christmas, Kids Christmas, you might as well have him turn good early. I can't really disagree with that choice. He is warmed. He is feeling appreciated, loved again, being around. the Ghost of Christmas Present doing it for him. They have a lovely jingle walking around Christmas Day. We then get to his nephews. I was about to say the Cratchits, but no, we get to his nephews playing a game with some friends and sort of just disses his uncle. I'm not really used to the nephew taking shots at the uncle like this. Basically, they were playing a game, guessing game, so to speak. I think they called it Yes and No. And Fred was giving all these descriptions of what this could be. And I think it went the lines of, it's an unwanted creature, it lives in the city, etc., etc. And guess what? It was Ebenezer Scrooge. That sort of hurt. It hurt Scrooge too. And seeing his nephew made fun of him just sort of ruined the moment for me. But then again, I'm glad he wasn't as main a character as he was in the 1951 classic. Anyway, let's move on. Now we get to the Cratchits. Of course, Mrs. Cratchit is Miss Piggy, nailing it 10 out of 10. Same goes for their daughters and their little Tiny Tim, a little green frog. You can't go wrong with it. They have a little jingle at the table. I'll admit, a bit too long. I will throw a little bit more criticism there. Their singing at the table took a bit too long. And then we cut short the Ghost of Christmas Present. Really creative way this time, I like it though. The spirit is aging rapidly. You can see his facial hair changing color instantly to gray. He disappears at the stroke of 12 in a graveyard. Very strange that all of a sudden we've gone from 1 o'clock to the Ghost of Christmas Past, 2 o'clock to the Ghost of Christmas Present, and then all of a sudden we're back at 12 o'clock. That was a bit weird. But maybe it was just for the dramatic effect of the 12 bells going while Scrooge and the spirit say their goodbyes. Cool thing though, a big puff of smoke pops out. And here comes the Ghost of Christmas Future. They did nail that perfectly. Again, hooded figure. You cannot see anything of a face. You nailed it. A good thing here is, by the way, going back to Gonzo and Rizzo, they were hanging around most of the scenes for comedic effect in the Ghost of Christmas Present too. For example, the ghost opening the windows, throwing both Rizzo and Gonzo to the floor as they were at the windows, and Rizzo falling down the chimney at the Cratchit's place smelling the goose. But we do the right thing here. We do remove them for the Ghost of Christmas Future's time. They do not follow along with this trip, which sort of sets the mood better for when we get to the inevitable graveyard scene. But first, we get a look at the businessmen talking about a man's death. Obviously, we know who it is. Scrooge is yet to figure it out. Then the selling of personal items at some kind of junk thrift area. And then finding out that Tiny Tim has passed away. And of course, graveyard scene. Scrooge devastated by his own loss, but we get the lovely Christmas morning wrap-up. He's going out making good on his deeds. Beautiful scenes. Has his own singing. I would say, yeah, pretty much by himself. I did like Michael Caine singing in this movie. It worked. We then get to the Cratchits. We wrap up everything nicely. Song. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. What more can I say? I didn't think I would be this descriptive with it, but it is one of my favorites, and there's not really too much I can take away with spoilers except for who plays the ghosts. If you haven't seen this and are a Muppet fan, really? You haven't seen this? If you need another telling of the Christmas Carol, maybe for your kids or some loved ones you know, think about the Muppets. Think about the Muppets and they won't let you down. It's a long, timely classic, and it's one of my favorite Christmas movies. You know it because it's this late to me finishing my reviews. That is going to do it. So right before I hit the 20-minute mark on this, Merry Christmas, everyone. I do have one more review coming out before the end of the day. Again, it's the greatest Christmas animated short of all time. I'll see you when we get there. Keep it real. Merry Christmas.